Yes, we are. Okay.
Right. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so this is just how my notes look, and like I say, it's not my saying that it's the right way of doing it. It's just the system I've got used to. Um, I do as well. You'll see the way I've written the names. I do everything in a system that makes sense for me. So obviously that's not how Emily Salin's name is actually written, but it's the way that I write it to make it make sense for me. The same for Oskari Heggila and so on. I just think with floorball there is so little time to process names that I like to have my own way of writing those names that I literally just say exactly as it looks for me. Um, and then I just put some information in about uh, obviously everything related to the WFC goes in bold right at the start. Um, I update it as I go. So right at the top of of everyone's profile, I know exactly how many WFCs they played out, their goals and assists. Anything relating to qualification goes next. Anything like World Games is in there. And then I put in what I can get with league statistics as well. Um, and then the thing you'll see in blue is the total number of goals they've scored for the national team, or it was going into the WFC. I can't get that for everyone, but I get it where I can. And then the thing in the right is the number of goals they've actually scored during the competition during this WFC. I just add that in as I go. And I think that thing for Salim that says 119th, I think that might be his 119th appearance. The match that might have been his 119th. I can't remember, but it made sense to me at the time that I wrote it. I don't know what it means now, but and then I obviously I've got any information about their 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 story as well, biographically. I've got some things in there. So that's one thing that I do. I also have this at the bottom of my notes, and I tear it off and put it next to me on the page. Just general things about Finland as a team, um, and I've got some information on the coach as well that I put in too because I like to try and say a bit more about the coach. And then just a thing about the Finnish league as well, that thing that says note on league. So after 6 years of domination by Classic, the last two F Liga titles have been won by TPS and the Oilers. Oilers are 2 points ahead of Classic in the league after 15 matches. That was going into the WFC. Um, just because it would be nice to mention that at some point during the broadcast. And then I just update their results as we go through the competition. So that's Finland. And then also for because it was Sweden, Finland, I also just like to have something that gives me wider Finland, Sweden context because obviously they've played so many times. Um, and when you see the thing that said in WFC finals, the reason I've got Stockholm, and Gothenburg in different colors is because I wanted specific information to jump out at me about the number of matches in Sweden they'd had at a WFC. So those ones were more important to me in Malmö. So I just put them in a slightly different color. So that's just the kind of general match info. But I do the same for every team. That this is the Philippines as an example. And again, you can see there I've got a completely crazy way of writing the player names that make sense for me in terms of how I'm supposed to say it. Um, I've probably got more personal information for the Philippines players than I have actually for the Finland Sweden players because, and this goes back to the thing Edvin said about you know matches being interesting and not interesting. I know that Finland Sweden is going to be a match where mostly we talk about the floorball. Um, I know that maybe Philippines versus someone else is a match where we'll talk more about the people. So actually, for some of the smaller nations, the nations who are maybe less competitive at a WFC, I have much more about them as people than I do about the floorball side of things. And it's a funny thing. Like when I go into a WFC, probably my two smallest sets of notes are the Finland and Sweden players. and my biggest will be Philippines, Australia, Canada,
Mhm.
um, because I think that's more important to get the human side of it.
All
And I also, sorry, yes, yeah,
right. Yeah, just jumping. How do you get all this information?
and that's my next bit. So, um, right, yes, how I gather the information. So, right. Let's start with the statistics side of things. Obviously, I do use the IFF app, but I've also gathered league websites as well. So I know for most of the big leagues, I know where I can get the information, even if it's the Latvian league, the Polish league. I know how to find those the statistics. For as you guys will know, for things like the F Liga and for the Swedish Super League, it's quite easy to find that information. It's a bit trickier for Poland. You've got to go through a whole weird system of sites and to eventually get there. And for some leagues, I'll never be able to find the information. I mean, trying to find the information on the Thailand league is just it's not happening. Um, but I do email the team managers and make contact with them. But I've also started doing a lot more gathering of personal information. So I search every single player on social media, um, find whatever I can on them. Um, I have a philosophy where I don't follow athletes on social media unless they follow me first. And the reason for that is that if someone's profile is private, I don't want to take something from their profile that actually and tell the world it when actually they don't want the world to know it. So I always take it as an invitation. If the athlete has followed me first, that it's okay to follow them back. And that's how I know that I'm not accidentally taking something from a private athlete's profile. Um, Otherwise, I take the view if an athlete has posted it publicly on their social media, then they've made the decision to share that information and I can then share that information. And I go back over everyone's profiles, like if, to find a picture of the athlete with their dog, so that I can, and it might just say, oh, my lovely dog, um, died after 18 years, and they were my best friend or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to mention that they're a dog lover, and that for 18 years they had a dog called so and so. Um, it might seem a stupid thing to say, but now every single dog lover likes that player. Every fan watching who likes dogs likes that player, and sometimes it's that simple. Like you reference a player who studied geography at university. Okay, now everybody who studied geography at university has a reason to care about that player. It's the tiniest connection that we form with somebody. Um, it might be one of my easiest tricks I use is anytime someone said something nice about their grandmother, because we all say nice things about our grandmothers, and loads of us have these sort of strong memories of grandparents, and so um, you forge an emotional connection between the audience and the athlete by putting these little bits of personal information in. Um, I do send out questionnaires. I've started doing this ahead of every WFC. I write to the team manager and I do a Google document and I ask the players to fill in anything they want. They don't have to. Some teams fill it in massively, some teams don't, but it's something I've started doing. And the IFF really likes it because they actually want athletes to get experienced at sharing this kind of information. And I don't know, do you have anything like that for your league? Any sort of system for sharing the information? So yeah, maybe that's
You know more than me. Mm, I don't know. I don't know if we have a system.
so it might be a thing to have a
We have
conversation
the
about as a group. Yeah.
we have the system. We use the system at the last season. We have some database. There is, but
there is some teams that have the big response for us. There is teams that answers like this. Edwin make this polls.
Yeah. So I made a spreadsheet like with 10 or maybe 12 different questions, something like you, like proudest moments, so the best season of your career, where he plays before, like general for the team. So what is your, I don't know, awards or what tournaments you win. So all general information or some interesting details. But yeah, we had the problems that some team send nothing or like the I don't know the best season for your team is and there was a question like 2020 and that's all. So I can't do something with this information.
No.
Yeah, some team like we have one team Iceberg. They made like a big like different things with hobbies with some jokes in their team. So and I use this information, but like 70% of the teams was dark, I can say.
Yeah.
So they don't send anything relevant.
Was it the first year that you did it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll get
not
better.
first, second. Yeah,
Okay.
first year it was worse.
Yeah.
Second year it was better because I have some examples that I do for my team. So when I send this like an example,
Nice.
and after like yeah, this year we don't do anything like this, but it's my problem because so I don't make this so serious this season because I was maybe a little bit disappointed for the previous
Yeah.
season. Yeah, so that was the reason. But yeah, it was really great thing to do. So yeah, I will think how to increase this and how to do this better.
It may be ask them fewer questions. Maybe I think you said 10 to 12 questions. Maybe just do like 5 questions. Um,
Yeah, first season it was 12, second season was 5.
yeah, there we go. Perfect. Keep doing it because what will happen, and I've noticed this has happened with me. The first time I did it, I had like you a few responses, um, and then teams started to notice that a lot more stories were being shared about other teams than were being shared about them. And I'm now starting at WFC. I get um, team managers coming up to me and saying, "Oh, how can we get our stories across to you?" And I often say to them, "Well, you fill in the document that I sent out would be a good start." And some of them didn't even notice it, like they just miss the email when it gets sent out. But yeah, for the first time, I actually had a team come up to me and say, we want to do it properly next year. We'll have a conversation about it. So I get more every time I do it. And I just want to show you this. That was from one player from the Philippines. The Philippines shared their life stories with me. It was, I have never seen anything like it. The Philippines shared their life stories. Every player wrote an autobiography. And the hardest thing for me was turning that into something that wasn't because my when I pasted the information across, it became 5 pages, the Philippines team. And I had to turn it into 1.5 pages like it normally is. And it was so difficult. Um, but I think probably my best commentary of the last WFC was on the Philippines. And that their head coach actually came up to me just to say how much he'd appreciated the telling of the stories. So I think I would say to you guys, just keep doing it with those questions. Keep building that database. It will become habit. The teams will get used to it eventually. They will.
And when
Yes.
do you use this information? When you know the moment you should start to tell a story and not lose the
Yeah.
in-game pro.
That's a great question. I like to I like to drop in lots of stories very early, and I like to drop in a bit of the story. So, for example, I use the close up a lot when lines are changing and we get a close up of players running in and out, or when there's a free hit and we get the pause. The moment I see a player in close up, I will say number 73, so and so, actually started his career in this city. So what an emotional moment it must be for him now playing here. That's it. That's all I'll do. I'll drop it in then. And if he doesn't do anything for the rest of the match, I'll never say that again. But when he scores, then that's when I jump back to it and I say, and in the city that he calls home, the city where his career started, he's the one that gives us the opening goal, or whatever. But I actually think you drop loads of them really early on. If you listen to a lot of my commentary, I put them in quite early in the match. And I try when the first lines are coming out and being shown at the start, I always try just to get one really quick thing in for every single one of those players early on. And I think what you then do is you kind of get a sense of who the important players are in the match early on, of who's going to be very high profile, and maybe then you focus more on their stories. There was I'm trying to think of who it was at the last championships. It was a play. That's it, right? I think it was in the Philippines actually. His dad, yeah, he was playing in the. His dad was the head coach, and I kept waiting for him to score, and he kept not scoring. And so the number of times I mentioned that his father was the coach, and then thank God in the last match he finally got a goal, and I was able to say, about him scoring the goal in the team managed by his father, because I think when the big moment happens, you then need to say that information as though it's new again, because of course that's the thing they'll use for the social media clips, or they'll use for the highlights. So I would say drop it in again as though it's new. But I do it, yeah, in the match, I drop lots of those things in really early. And maybe most of them, they don't go any further because they're just one bit of information. But then, yeah, tell it again, when the key moment comes up. Does that answer it, Michael?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So my second strategy is this was one of the best bits of advice I was given when I was commentating at the Olympics for the first time. And one of the producers, who was also a commentator, said, "Give the viewer someone to cheer for." His view, and I agree with him, is that he doesn't care who wins. All he cares about is that you care who wins. And that's something that's very central to my philosophy as a commentator, is I will try to give the viewer equal reason to support either team at the start of the match, or to support a particular player. So it might be, let's say we've got, I don't know, a snowboard race between two people, and one of the two people has just come back from a serious injury, and the other of the two people has they were twice a junior world champion, but they've never managed to achieve their potential as a senior. Now, I will tell you at the start that story, and I then don't care which of the two wins. It really doesn't matter to me, but I want to give you something to care about. I want you to decide. Maybe the most important thing to you is the injury comeback. Maybe the most important thing to you is the not achieving the potential, and maybe this is the moment finally they're going to achieve their potential. All of us, we all carry things that matter to us. Um, I'm somebody who loves. I love a veteran getting the best moment of their career late on. That just will always hit me hard. I love it. Um, I'm always somebody who's going to care more about the 38-year-old finally winning a title than I'm going to care about the 16-year-old winning a title. Other people are the reverse. So I think you just always look for the reason, always look to drop in why the viewer might care. And it might just be that they like one of the coaches more. I mean, for the Philippines head coach, when I told people the story that he was adopted at 6 weeks from an orphanage and was brought to Sweden, and now he was managing the Philippines national team in Sweden, the country in which he'd grown up, having been adopted, he becomes everyone's favorite head coach. It's that simple. So you just look. I think it's just about looking for um, that reason to make a viewer care, and that's where I always
Okay,
think
so
about. Yeah, sorry, yeah, go for it. Yeah,
yeah, so I have a question right now because I do I do in this way. So I give a reason to cheers for this team and cheer for second team, and like maybe from for a minute, like 1 minute left or not left, better to say after 1 minute, I just saw different comments like, "Hey, why is this commentator? He cheers for this team. Why he do this? Why he enjoys this team?" Or after some players come to my friends and say, "Hey, Why he? I don't know, prefers this team. We think that he is not fair, or why he." Cheers for this team because they will listen and they will hear only what they want to hear. They will
yes,
hear that I am cheering for one team, but they don't hear how I celebrate with the second team. And I don't know what to do with this information because I think that it's, yeah, like you said, it's really great thing when you give a reason to cheers for both teams. But sometimes when I start to do this, I saw a comments or they just send me personal messages in my accounts. Hey, why you cheer for this team? You're not for us. Do you have any problem with us or something like this? And I don't know what to do because I think it's a good way to approach to our viewers, but how to manage this and how to
yeah.
stay equal here.
Um, Everything you've just told me there tells me you are a proper commentator because every commentator gets exactly this. If you, I speak from experience. If you go back and look at some of the comments on my commentary from the Sweden Finland final, there are an equal number of comments saying I obviously support Sweden and I obviously support Finland. It's fantastic. Um, because you're quite right, the fans will hear what they want to hear. The best example of this ever, I commentated a football match once between Iraq and Iran. And even there, the fans were arguing about whether I was pro-Iraqi or pro-Iranian. It's like I'm a guy from England. I have no allegiance to either of those teams. So I honestly think this is the absolute reality of commentary, and the fact that you're getting those comments does tell me that you are actually engaging people with what you're saying. So I mean, it I've got no good answer I can give you for
Just
that, I think.
ignore,
Yeah,
just ignore.
completely. Yeah,
Yeah,
ignore
thank
it.
you. I will do better in the next match. I will say that your team is the best. Okay, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Listen to the next match and I will do the best. Something like this.
The the worst one is football is so much worse because football fans blame the commentator when their team concedes a goal. They take it as a personal insult that the commentator says a goal has been scored against their team. Um, it's just the reality of it. I even as I said before, I do a lot of work in gymnastics. I once had somebody angry with me that I wasn't talking enough about the gymnast Simone Biles. They were very cross. I wasn't talking enough about her. She wasn't competing. She wasn't in the competition. She wasn't there, but they were still angry that I wasn't talking about her. Um, there is nothing you can do about those sorts of fans. You can't. So, but I think yeah, genuinely that's Edwin. I think that's an
I
evidence that you're probably doing it right.
Yeah, I have even the funny stories that my team, Michael plays for my team, and I don't go to the second tour and I don't play for my team. But I was commentating this match, and it was funny that sometimes I was just mm, I was just hating my team for mistakes. But even with this situation in comments, I saw like personal information that, hey, why you are cheering for your team? You need to comment more wisely. And I don't understand. I start to hate my team in different moments, like
Yeah.
personals. Why he do this? Why he do this? Because I know that they will hear this and they will understand. Oh, okay, yeah, Edwin is right because he told us these things like many times on the training, and now in match we do the same thing. So I just do this for fun and because it's my team, so I think that they will know, they will don't have any problems with this. But even after this, someone in comments they just start, why he's cheering for his for this team, why he's cheering for his team. Yeah, so
Yeah.
oh
Honestly,
They're not angry with you. They're angry their team is losing.
it feels when you're now speaking about commentators, but it feels like the same discussion is with referees.
Yes. Now this is actually I was going to come on to that later actually to talk about referees because we I have a very simple philosophy as a commentator, which is I there is nothing I will say that I wouldn't say to the person's face. I always imagine that the athlete has headphones on and is sitting next to me, or the referee has headphones on and is sitting next to me. I will always uh, treat it as though the human being is listening. And in floorball, they are. And I know this because at the WFC, the referees come up to me and they say, "Oh, thank you for being so kind about us. Or thank you for being fair when we made this mistake or whatever." Um, I do think that I think we should expect people to be kind when we mess up. I think we should be kind when the referees mess up. I think we should be kind when the players mess up, because we're all human beings. And I think that you have a choice. When someone is on the ground, you offer them a hand or you offer them a boot. You either help them up or you kick them. I think we always help people up as commentators. When the athlete has a bad day, we help them up. The only time I will be really critical is when an athlete does something that I think shames the sport, when they're violent, when they are abusive to a referee, when they conduct themselves in against the spirit of fair floorball. Then I think it's important actually to say that was bad behaviour, that was not appropriate. I think when someone misses a penalty shot, you know, they don't need us to tell them it was a disaster. They know. They know when they've missed the crucial penalty shot. And I think we should always try um, to take a positive approach. And I think that applies to the referees as well. I will say that as a non-expert, I'm not like you guys, obviously, with your great knowledge of the sport. There are times when I have no idea. I mean, less so now because I've been commentating it many years, but early on, there were times when I had no idea why the referee had blown their whistle. So I would develop phrases that would allow me to say what had happened without committing myself. So I would often say things like, and the referee has blown the whistle, play has been pulled back, it will be Ukraine's ball. That's all I could commit to because I couldn't say more than that. Or I would say, and in the referee's judgment, that is a Ukraine free hit. Because I know that's technically correct. I don't necessarily know why, but I at least sometimes I think we have to give ourselves a way out. I always say as a commentator, never drive the car into a road you can't turn around in. Always give yourself the opportunity to turn and get back. Um, there was an awful moment in a football match many years ago in the UK when the co-commentator, the expert, he said it was 1-1, and the expert said only one team's going to win it now, and that's England. Of course, England lost. And about 5 minutes after he said only one team's going to win it now, Romania scored, and and everyone remembers it because he gave himself no way out. Now, if he had said it looks really likely now that England's going to win it. It would be a real surprise if Romania win it. Then when it's a tiny change of phrase, but when that goal goes in, then he can go, that has gone totally against what we thought was going to happen. And that's fine because that happens in sport. But you can't back out from saying only one team is going to win it now. Then you look foolish. So I think it's always good to give yourself a way out. Um, just to come back to what I've got on the screen, which is the three types of viewer: the hardcore fan, the casual fan, and the new viewer. You've always got to be talking to them all at the same time, and we often forget one group of them, and that's why you'll hear me often using phrases like, and for those of you new to watching floorball, or and those of you who watch the Latvian league, you will know very well that dot dot dot, and those of you who are goalkeepers will remember the feeling of whatever. I think sometimes it's important to put a phrase in at the start to tell which group you're talking to, that you're talking to them, to say, and if you haven't watched floorball for a couple of years, then say something. And it's nice. Reward the hardcore fans. Give the hardcore fans their moment of glory. Say to them, and I know many of you out there, you've been watching this team for years now, and you've seen the way they've developed, and you've seen when they were right down at the bottom of the league, and you've seen them come up to top of the league. Because actually, you're talking to the new viewer at the same time. You're educating the new viewer about the progress of that team while encouraging the hardcore fan, for rewarding them for their years spent watching the sport. So sometimes you actually use one group of fans that you're talking to say something to the other group in a slightly devious way. This is how I kind of profile them a bit. The hardcore fan loves the tactics, loves the statistics. They're less likely to care about the human being playing the sport. They will watch even if there's no commentary, no graphics, and only one camera. And they are the one who will write to Edwin the angry comments on social media that we've just talked about. They are also the smallest group, usually. They're the noisiest group. The casual fan is more interested in the context of the match, why the match matters, and they want to know more about the sport and the people. And the new viewer needs a reason not to change the channel. They're the one that needs to care about the story of the match, and they need to be taught the basics of the sport. And I had a really interesting experience at the last WFC. I got a message out of nowhere from somebody I had met on a holiday. I'd met his family. He was a young guy, and he saw a post I put on Instagram saying I was commentating this floorball match, and he thought, "What's floorball?" And so he just decided to go on the IFF app and he bought the Sweden-Finland final. And he messaged me afterwards and he's just like, I'm hooked. I'm absolutely hooked. This is the most amazing. I had no idea this sport existed. I love it. And I'm always thinking about that, about how we can grab the new viewer with the human stuff, with the narrative. And he said the thing that he loved was that I just kept framing it as a just a kind of massive contest between two great rivals. And the only thing he really cared about was that I kept pointing out that Sweden had never lost a um, a final in their own country. That was the thing. That's all he remembered. And because I said that, he wanted Finland to win because he wanted to see the thing that had never happened happen. And that sometimes you get the new viewer with the simplest thing. Sometimes you just have to keep saying it again and again and again, so it hits home. Um, that brings me to my third of my four strategies, which is that to me, it's never just floorball. Floorball is never just floorball. Um, it is, and this is where I think it's important to step out and look at the wider context. For me, it's nation number one versus nation number two, and there's a story. Now, you'll notice when you listen to my commentary, I have made up names for lots of the international matches. So, Singapore versus Thailand is the Malacca Derby, because of the body of water separating them. Singapore versus Philippines is the Southeast Asian Derby. Australia versus Singapore is the Asia Oceania Derby, and so on. I like to try to give names to matches so that they start to mean something. Um, and that's something I've consciously tried to do with the IFF, is to give names to big matches. Um, and some of those really stick. Like, some of you may remember when I did a match where there was a famous comeback between Switzerland and Czechia, and I said at the end, I used the term the miracle of Neuchâtel, and I keep getting people mentioning it to me now. 5 years later, everyone uses the term the miracle of Neuchâtel. Sometimes you get lucky as a commentator, and a term hits, it stays with a viewer. But I think that's really important, that you give a wider context. And sometimes nation one versus nation two, I'm not just talking about the floorball context, I'm talking about the wider sporting context. Yeah, Denmark and Norway hate each other in lots of sports. They don't just hate each other in floorball. Sweden and Finland hate each other in football, athletics, ice hockey. Give that wider sense of context, across a number of sports. It's lovely when you can do that, even if it's uh, the Philippines, the largest nation at the WFC by population, which a lot of people could forget, or maybe don't even know. Sometimes it's when it was New Zealand, at the under-19, it was the nation that had travelled the furthest to get to the tournament. That's just a small thing to get in there. Um, I know we need to pause because we've got to start again, haven't we?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, I've nearly finished now, so we'll probably jump back in one last time.
Yeah.
Okay, see you all in a moment.
Okay.
Okay.